This is Nicholas Garten.
This is Omar Waheed.
And this is Rob Chappell.
And I was very confused by both of you pointing at me.
Omar.
So Omar pointed at me, but then you pointed at Omar and then pointed at me. And I was like, do I not go?
No,
Look, I've been gone for a couple weeks. I know.
What I was trying to indicate was that Omar's point is also valid.
He was pointing to me, so I'd point at you, and then
what point?
He would point
the pointing
at everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the sign language here that you've all come up with.
It's 365 amplified for Friday, February 7th.
Rob really wants to host the show all by himself and enjoy the time I was not around. Because you even got into your radio voice. You got like lower in your register, closer to your mic, made sure everyone knew the date.
Well, I've been doing it the last couple of weeks since I've been away. So
regular Edinburgh.
I know. I'm okay with being away, but you all won't let me have more than 2 weeks off. So I had stuff going on to be transparent, and a bunch of work happening. Just a reminder that I do work on campus, and so some things.
And you work
happen.
in an area that is under some scrutiny.
Oh, we want to say some scrutiny, or we can just say there is a lot of pressure in that space. Locally, as well as federally. And it makes for some chaos, which is the intent of what they're trying to do to begin with. It is a perpetual sort of space that we've been in for the last year or 2 or 5, right? And it doesn't mean that it's as worse or going as well as other folks are feeling or such. It's just what it is right now. That's what the work has to be, is under this microscope and pressure, which is happening in different spaces also, at the local level and the federal level, right?
Right. It's just out this morning that the new Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is asking attorneys, I don't know how this works exactly, but to criminally investigate private companies who do DEI stuff.
Which is interesting choice. Do you all not know what your scope is and what it's not? Like how
No.
Like they don't necessarily understand what their work really is and what it isn't.
They probably do, but they're trying.
No, but they're trying to expand, right? They're
right.
trying to see what they can expand. So the use of the current president's use of executive orders is an attempt to expand his power. Right? And to see what they can get away with.
Right.
Right? Like all of these things.
So criminally investigate private companies for diverse hiring practices. But inversely, in the past, no criminal charges for outwardly discriminatory hiring practices.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's a crime when white people get discriminated against,
of course.
Apparently. But also it just demonstrates
what's the standard?
They don't know what DEI is.
Yeah.
That they think DEI means white people can get hired, but that's not.
But here's the thing, for DEI too, it's also based on gender, right? So white men are whatever, but white women do well under DEI, right? So are they counted in this space, in this language?
DEI also is usually related to veterans.
Well, it's
and LGBTQ folks, and
it's not this binary only black versus white, right? Which is what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is again otherize and sort of dismantle any progress of any sort, and try to again create this idea that it's us versus them, and the us being the most harmed, which is the white people who are most harmed under these practices, which is not true, because if the most marginalized gets access to things, so does everybody else, right? So if one person gets to move up, everyone moves up into space and such like that, but they're unwilling to understand that or see that or think about that beyond that, because creating these kinds of us versus them mentality and this sort of we're still all fighting for that one slice of pie, and et cetera, they can get away with more stuff.
We often say that local elections and local government has more impact on your day-to-day life than the federal does, and we'll have Sheri Carter on a little bit later in the show to talk about her local alder person race. But I feel like that is sort of an exception right now. That what the federal government is doing is going to reach down to our local communities.
Well,
right?
absolutely. And part of the reason why we say local is important for us to understand every single day, day to day, is because we don't realize that the resources that we receive locally are sometimes funded, most of the times funded federally, right?
Yep.
And so so all of this impact is starting to hurt us, with those organizations that provide resources in gaps in ways that our government is unable to fill. And so, childcare services, our local school districts, access to food, access to resources to get food and housing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those things are starting to be impacted.
Right.
Right. And even things like, it's cold the next couple of weeks. Access to funding to help folks pay for heating is going to be impacted if we're not careful, right? If not already.
Right. And it's difficult I've actually reached out to a couple of local nonprofits that receive federal funding. And they don't even want to talk because it's just so unclear what's going to happen. Yeah. Like they can't day to day. They can't even like give me a quote because they're like, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, because there's this confusion about, again, these executive orders that they're doing. And the reason why he's using executive orders is because they're not quite sure, quite frankly, whether or not he has the power to enact all the things that he's doing.
Right. So he's just trying it to see what
he's just trying it to see if Congress responds or if somebody sues him or a nonprofit sues him and sees what happens, right? And by the time, he gets the no, you're not allowed to do that, they've already impacted so many other things, right? They've already stopped. It's a large, the federal government is a huge administration. So when you stop one thing, it's not like it's going to take us the next day to get it back together and get things rolling, right? It is going to be days, weeks, months, years. You lose staff. You lose historical context and knowledge. You lose best practices. You lose all those things, which will slow down and confuse even further, that harm.
Right.
And it'll be interesting to see what the response is, in terms of the courts. But it's also interesting to see what Congress will do, because Congress, you're the purse. I don't know what the heck you are all doing, but get some work. But they're the purse. So, some of these executive orders are overstepping in their role. And it'll also be interesting to see the power of the state versus the federal government in this other direction, because they are also impacting the role of states being able to use that federal funding in ways that they see best. So it will be interesting to see states' rights versus the federal government in this different way.
Versus allegiance to Trump. Because I feel like that's
it's not even that. It's states' rights, which is a very old concept in the U.S. government.
It should be that.
Absolutely. There is this large, long history of states fighting the federal government for about what our rules and what we can and can't do and what you all have impact on. And we have shared understanding. It changes every once in a while. So it moves a little bit left and moves a little bit right. But this is outright it will be interesting to see a group of governors, which is happening, right, suing the federal government, saying you can, by definition or, by constitutional precedent or, or by legal precedent, you're not supposed to be doing this. This is our area. So it's interesting to see how executive power is being expanded in what ways, when I think he ran on, from what I understand, shrinking that power, right? Rather than expanding it.
Right.
Yeah, he's a states' rights guy.
Yeah, that's right. That
supposedly.
Too. Yeah, supposedly, right?
States' right to do what?
To follow him.
Well, that's the thing. I don't see... our governor, our attorney
general,
there
are a few governors though.
is on the one of the lawsuits.
Yep.
To stop the executive orders, but also I can't see Robin Voss suddenly becoming an advocate for Wisconsin.
But there's a difference.
Rights.
But there is a difference though between senators or a state legislator's response to this versus a governor who is the executive, right? So when you talk about states' rights, you really are talking about governors right now, who
and attorney general,
right?
Yeah.
In certain spaces and arenas. And yes, the legislature will have some of that. The state legislature will have some of that, but it will be interesting for the governors versus the executive of the federal government having this argument, because it's a different space.
Yeah, and I want to throw out to the listeners and your friends, if you are a federal employee who was affected by these buyout offers or whatever.
Here's the other thing: federal employees don't just exist in Washington D.C. I think people are also like not sometimes aware that federal employees do not mean only
bureaucrats in Washington.
They're park rangers.
They deliver your mail.
Yeah.
I was just taking the car in front of Ocean yesterday and drove by the Social Security office in Madison.
Yeah.
Like they're federal employees all over the country who have been offered a buyout.
That changed 4 times.
That has already changed, and that may not actually work.
Yeah. No,
because the executive branch doesn't even have authority to offer money past March 14th. So, if that affects you, or if you are an agency, if you work for a nonprofit that gets federal funding, or if you work for a company that has a federal contract, or anything like that, I would love to hear from you. Or frankly, if you are a business that has a DEI department or a DEI program and you're worried about that being criminally investigated, we'd love to hear from you. Email me, news@madison365.org, or I'll just throw my office number out, 608-229-1597. Don't text that number. It can't get texts, but you can call that number anytime. But also I want to mention, you mentioned the when is the House of Representatives going to say, like, hey, we actually control the money, and the Speaker of the House has basically acquiesced and said everything Trump's doing sounds like a lot of fun. And Gwen Moore, the representative from Milwaukee, along with
the representative from California.
Yes. Judy Chu from California. I'll clean that up.
Yeah.
Basically barged into the Speaker's office. Did not have an appointment, but wanted to have a little face-to-face.
It was a peer-to-peer conversation.
Yeah.
It's fine. She doesn't need an appointment. They're peers.
They should be. So I'm not sure exactly what was said, but, representatives are mixing it up a little bit and kind of not necessarily sitting by. It's taken like a week for Democrats on the Hill to get activated, but they are.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. There are other ways for them to sort of slow this down or voice their concern about this. This administration is still looking to confirm some folks. Mm-hmm. They could get in the way of that if they choose to, right?
It sounds like that's kind of there was some reluctance to go there.
That's cute. Just do something different.
But that sounds like that's more of the case now. They're just going to vote. You're not going to get any votes until this.
Yeah, until you have you get us to order and can let us do some business here,
right?
And have some conversations, and stop this stuff.
But again, this is obviously impacting the federal government. It's affecting us locally, and some local folks started to come out, not only here but across the country. Right? And Omar there was 50 protests in 50 state capitals yesterday. Wednesday earlier this week, and Omar was at the one in Madison.
Of course, it was nice and cold. Everyone was impressed with how bundled I was because it's not my first protest in the cold. I wore a ski mask, a thermal layer, and gloves, and I was also layered up on top of that too. Everyone else was jealous of me. People came out. Reject Project 2025 is the official name. The nickname they've been giving it on social media is 5051. That's 50 protests across 50 states on one day. Around 400 people came out to the state capitol to voice their overall anger with the current Trump administration in his second term now, specifically on a lot of the portions of Project 2025 and the sweeping wave of executive orders.
Project 2025, which the media kept telling us was not part of the Trump campaign.
Which media? Other media.
Every time it came up, there would be somebody saying, like, which, with Donald Trump has publicly distanced himself from Project 2025, but then now he's doing everything that was in Project 2025. Like, come on, guys. Sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They weren't happy. Oh boy. There were some great signs though, and my favorite one I will mention because everyone deserves to see this. A guy all the way in the back had a very large sign. As soon as I entered, I saw it from up on the Capitol steps, and he was all the way at the bottom. It said, "Wax Ron Johnson's nipples," and of course, I had to go. double take. It's like, there's no way that's
the sign.
That's a protest sign. What is the message here? What does he know that we don't? So I went down there to talk to him for fun, and he was excited. He was very giddy that someone
like acknowledged, affirmed him with his sign. Like, it's like, this is interesting. This is a choice that I would like. I have questions about. Yeah.
He was very excited. I was like, what's going on here? He's like, yeah. So that is my new political stance, to get to the bottom of Ron Johnson's nipples. But we decided that we should go talk to the people. We should hear what they're really just mad about, and it's everything. Yeah. It's but each people have their own individual thing that they're just a little bit more mad about. Yeah. Two people I talked to, Shar and Mary Beth, both recipients of DEI programs. Shar is an immigrant, and Mary Beth is a veteran. So they both receive DEI efforts equally, initiatives. So when you have those stripped away, you're hurting the veterans too. Yep. So they were not happy about that. One guy had a very interesting argument. His name was Mike, and that's the only name he wanted to give. He said we should return to the rule of law, and that the Trump administration has overstepped its ability to do what it's doing. Like you mentioned earlier, they're just kind of throwing things at the wall to see if anyone challenges it. He said that's the game. They know the appeals process takes time, and they want to be right. So he's just going to keep doing it, and we need to return to a hard, firm stance. Interesting enough, he went to January 6th. Not that one. the one where when Trump, the most recent January 6th, where the snowball fight. He was like that. I was there to protest. I asked him, "Did you get involved in the snowball fight?" He was like, "No." A little disappointed, but yeah, the people are not happy, or at least 400 of them.
It's interesting because that where I saw that protest most advertised or promoted was on Reddit, in the Madison, Wisconsin subreddit, and it was sort of like poo-pooed as like, what are you even protesting against? You got to be more specific, and nobody's going to come to this on 11 o'clock on a Wednesday. But that was not the case. I
personally didn't believe that many people were going to be there at 11 o'clock.
Well, we were even talking about whether to cover it, and I was like, "Yeah, go ahead." And if there's nobody there, no big deal.
I mean, I said I would give it a couple hours, but
you're like
400 people showed up, and
on a cold day.
On a cold day,
and during a week where there was another protest. Right, there was also a day without immigrants. As well on Monday that was maybe larger in other places, but it's still difficult to organize on the same day of another protest as well, right? Yep. On the same week, excuse me.
I mean, and those were weekend protest hours, 11 to 4.
11 to 4 is a weekend protest hour.
Those are still a lot of people showed up.
Yeah, during the work week and on a very cold day because that Wednesday
that was chilly. Yeah,
it was chilly. But there is another one planned in a couple of weeks, if I remember correctly. Yes. That I don't remember the dates, y'all.
I think it's the 22nd.
Go to Reddit.
Watch Reddit. Apparently, that's where it's at.
Well, yeah, a lot of organizing is happening on not in usual social media channels, right? Like people are not using yet Blue Sky for that work, somewhat, but not really. Yeah. People aren't using the Twitter X or whatever, or Elon Musk's personal diary,
Facebook events anymore.
Or Facebook. All of that sort of is going away, or at least not being used or trusted just yet. But people are putting a lot of that information on Reddit instead. So it's interesting to see all that kind of difference
shifting.
Yeah, and how people are reacting and responding and organizing and such. I think that Project 2025 stuff, like it's interesting, right? Like they had a whole list of projects they're going to work on. And if someone's a project manager, right, like they put in their goal, their end goal. And, and the beginning is that Trump gets elected. And then this is our goal at the end. But everything in the middle is messy. And they don't have like the task list that they're supposed to have with what they're throwing out and stuff like that. So like, I think Omar's point of what he was saying was like, Trump is just throwing stuff up there to try to see what he can get approved and pushed out. They just need one win because they've already caused enough chaos to do that. So I also want to remind folks that there is a primary local election coming up really, really soon that folks should, pay attention to and just read about and get involved in, because it is right in February,
February 19th.
Yeah. That one is just as important as what you'll see in April, right? So like if you are organizing to come out and protest, maybe organize yourselves to get to vote for that primary in a couple of weeks too. Yep. What's the next thing we want to talk about, Rob?
Omar's got another local story that has only tangentially involved the federal government because it is a Section 8 issue, kind of. But you went to a community meeting at Madison Estates?
Yes, it was technically another protest. They are my favorite things to go to. Residents of Madison Estates held a community meeting to push back on their landlord for refusing to meet a whole slew of issues about falling apart buildings, infrastructure, and being forced to pay for common area utilities, which is something that the landlords typically pay for themselves. But the interesting part is there's a lot of city and state involvement in this. It does seem like it's going to bloom into something else rather soon. There's continuous health hazards where the city inspectors have come out and the landlords just refuse to fix it. They constantly cycle through maintenance workers and property managers to avoid actually meeting these orders, is at least what they alleged of why they're doing that. Usually at these protests, they amount to a little bit, these demands, these community meetings. But there's a lot of weight behind it now, and I do think that something bigger might come out of it soon.
At this community, who was like the city and like Tenant Resource Center and other entities were actually represented at this meeting, right?
City of Madison, Urban Triage, the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection and Legal Action Wisconsin, Department of Civil Rights, Madison Tenant Power, and the Tenant Resource Center all decided to come out to hear issues and help the tenants navigate, what they're going through. Because, again, the city inspectors have been out there numerous times, and they don't fix anything.
So, who owns this building and where are they located?
Highland Vistas Group, and they are in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, say it. I'm like, let's just say where it is.
They are.
They are not anywhere near in-state.
They're not reachable. They do have a lot of listed phone numbers, and none of them seem to answer.
And one of the people you talked to, this is remarkable, said that they've had, and who, grain of salt, I don't know how 100% accurate this is, but they've seen 6 different property managers in the last year, a little over a year.
Wow. One woman who's been living there since March of last year, and it's not even a full year, has seen 6 different property managers come through. There was another family, mother and her daughter. They've been there much longer, and they just have completely lost track at this point. They just cycle through all the people, and they feel like sometimes the property managers start to care and they start to do something about the conditions, and Highland Vista Groups
just doesn't
let them, or maybe fires them.
Yeah, or won't give them funding or resources for them to do that stuff.
Basically.
So as things move along there, that's where is that building? Is it McKenna Boulevard, is that right?
Yep, McKenna Boulevard
on the southwest side. So we'll keep track of that. Keep an eye on that. The other another local story I want to talk about. I'm going to go over to you, Nick. Goodman Community Center has been in the news recently. Can you get us up to speed? And you actually talked with Letitia Nelson, the director.
I did. I went on a tour of Goodman yesterday or earlier this week, and really looked at all the programming that they've got going on. They've got so many things happening. They've got their food pantry, which is record setting right now for them.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago in January, after that really, really cold day where the city was shut down, they saw the most people they've ever seen for the pantry in a single day.
Wow.
They've got senior programming going. They've got programming for kids of all ages. And so they're really, Goodman Center does a lot for this community.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they need the community's continued support. Because it's tough right now.
Yeah.
They're under assault from the White House with federal funding
Mm-hmm.
freezes.
Mm-hmm.
They've been attacked in the media here locally because of the actions of an employee who stole money from Goodman
Mm-hmm.
and defrauded them and committed theft. And his name's Dwayne Powell. He worked in their finance department, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he's facing, multiple felonies for stealing up to $600,000.
Over the course of a few years, right?
Yep. Writing bad checks to himself.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Doing a lot of credit card fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spoke with Letitia yesterday about it, and she said that they're heartbroken.
Yeah.
She said, I can't tell you all the ways my heart is broken, and how their organization has suffered
Mm-hmm.
because of it. She's been working with the staff to talk about how to get through this. But, their overall vibe is like, they've got 3-year-olds in the building, and the 3-year-olds don't care. They need what they need right now, and they've got 93-year-olds in the building.
Yeah, I was going to say, they work with young children
yep.
in the community all the way to older adults, right? So they provide support and programming and resources, to wrap around sort of care and for community in different ways and such. So that they don't get to really rest, right? They, in terms of I hope they do take time to reflect and think about what their next steps are and how we care for each other. But also they recognize that the work is right at their front door every day for them.
Continues, right?
Yeah.
The needs continue. Now, is there any sense that, the sort of discourse, it sounds like, is that something went terribly wrong here and should have been caught earlier or something like that? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, about a year ago, the news of this started to come out in midsummer.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But Letitia Nelson said they'd been having conversations with staff sort of centered around, if you see something, say something, which, I kind of derived to mean, because they have school kids there.
Mm-hmm.
But also talked about having a psychologically safe space.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently one employee really took that to heart and had noticed that this Dwayne Powell person, they found a check that he had written to himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so they brought it to the HR. HR notified Letitia Nelson. She came in and started trying to figure out what was going on, but she didn't have access to all of the financial records and systems and sort of logins that she would need. Mm-hmm. So, this kind of started on a Monday. By Friday, they'd uncovered enough fraud that they went to the police.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then, they've been running an investigation that concluded a few weeks ago, I believe.
Yep.
With the DA charging him with 9 felonies.
Which those felonies were just filed on the 29th of January.
Yeah.
So real recently.
They brought in they have a board of directors that they brought in to this process kind of in the investigation. They hired a PR firm. They conducted a forensic audit. And one thing that's really important to point out, I think, is that they did an audit of their grant funding to make sure that none of the grants that they received are funds that were stolen by this individual. And so that's real important for people to know.
Because often a grant funding is to be used on a specific thing, right? You get a grant for the food pantry, or a grant for the Head Start, or the grant, and they're finding that those grants were allocated correctly,
right?
How has this affected donations and continuing grants? And
People haven't been donating because they're sort of, they weren't able for the longest time to tell people, look, this wasn't an organizational thing that happened. This is one person.
It's been isolated to one person.
Absolutely doing this fraud.
And they're unable to communicate that because it was also like an investigation. And I'm sure folks were like, you can't talk about it because if we are wrong about this, you are all liable, right? Like that's a lawsuit if you're not careful and mindful. And also because it's an active investigation, we don't want things leaking out, quite frankly, just yet.
Right.
But so you're safe donating.
Yeah.
And they need it now, probably more than ever. Right?
They need it now. Mm-hmm. They're like I said, they're facing expanded need in their pantry. They're facing expanded need in their school programming. So Letitia's heart is broken. She really broke down in tears during this interview. Talked about how, especially as a Black woman leading this organization, having just come in a few years ago, that things have been really kind of cruel towards her on that front.
Yeah.
And the media has attacked her. They've had different people questioning her leadership, questioning sort of the ethics of having a Black woman lead an organization in Madison, as DEI is under assault.
Oh, dear God, y'all. Y'all, you stop it. That is like, look, no. I don't know how to tell you all. She got that job because she was the right person for that job. She has continued to work in that community despite all these things, despite these criticisms, to continuously expand their services and the work that they do for our local community. Like, keep in mind, their work is local. Their impact is local. It is for your neighbors, your friends, your families, the invisible folks you don't even know about or see, and they continue to do this work. This is not a DEI hire. That's not, stop. Like, that's a reflection of you and your own bias that you need to do some homework on your own and not in a Facebook comment, X, Twitter thread, or like whatever comments you're coming on from that. Like, go do some reading and understand what the work is. And before you start criticizing somebody as a DEI hire, understand what their impact has been. If you don't know that, get out of the way. Stop wasting people's time and trying to make them look bad. And absolutely, this impact of federal funding impacts something like Goodman Center and local community centers like that all the time. Mm-hmm. And these, like I said, are the folks who are providing programming and care for our youngest to our oldest and everything in between. Because they also have teen programming in their spaces too.
They do.
So literally they are trying to do wraparound care for our community every single day. And like I said, the impact when you give is a local impact. I know it's hard sometimes to imagine, like, where's my dollar being spent? How is it being spent well? You're like, who is it going to when it feels sometimes invisible? You can see it in what Goodman does. It's visible to you. It is visible to your community. My goodness, sorry. I got upset with the DEI thing. Come on, y'all.
No, I mean, get upset because it's been, this is the reason why they only sat down with Madison 365 because other media have,
questioned whether or not, somebody is capable, like question whether or not they were or still capable of doing that role in that job. That should never be a question. They got hired. They went through a process. There are things that we can talk about, but to say that it was a DEI hire is disrespectful to the community and the folks who support Goodman Center and the folks who lead and work in there every single day. That is nonsense, and that is clickbait. That, like, pay attention to what else is going on in the world. This is not it. Dear God.
Right. Thank you, Nick, for that reporting. And
that's great.
That story will be up at madison365.org. If it's not up there already by the time you're hearing this, it'll be shortly, so watch for that. One of the last thing I want to mention as local news is we have an update on Madison Alder Charles Myadze and his court proceedings. He was in court on Monday. As a reminder, he has been accused of a wide range of domestic violence allegations and also sexual harassment allegations. He's been censured by the city council. He's been stripped of all his committee appointments, and he has been arrested and charged with 8 felonies. all the felonies related, especially because they are recent enough to be within the statute of limitations, all related to his relationship with Gloria Reyes, the former deputy mayor, former mayoral candidate, former school board president. He was in court for a status conference on Monday. He did speak with me once before he was arrested, and coming out of the courtroom, I just tried to talk to his attorney, and he said no, he didn't want to talk to me. So, but anyway, his attorney has filed a motion to dismiss 6 of the 8 charges.
Wow.
So if there's any sense that he was going to try to do a plea bargain or anything like that, he's fighting it. His next appearance will be March 11th in a preliminary hearing before Judge Nia Trammell. And the motion to dismiss basically makes a lot of arguments that you would normally make at trial, and saying like there was no probable cause because these allegations are contradictory, and the criminal complaint does list a few things that aren't charged. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. That just means the police wanted to give all the information to the DA, and then the DA decided which of these allegations to
move forward
charge,
with.
Right? So it's not clear why the 2 charges that he didn't dispute aren't being asked to be dismissed, or what's going to happen with those. But in any case, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure of all the strategy behind it. But again, that's next court date is March 11th, and we'll be there. That it's not. He's not running for re-election. He's not. He's still coming to city council meetings, but he's got that 1 vote, but he's not on any committees. So it's almost to the point of not being real relevant, but at the same time, you do want to follow the story through and find the consequences.
But if you steal something, but then you give it back, like you don't still get charged, right? Like that's not.
That's literally one of the points in the.
You can't charge
that burglary, according to jury instructions, burglary requires the intent to deprive the victim of property. The allegation is that Charles Myadze broke into Gloria Reyes' apartment to take back a Christmas present that he had given her. And then a month later, they reconciled and he gave it back to her again. So if you gave it back, then obviously you didn't intend to deprive her of it, and therefore that can't be charged as a burglary charge.
But he did, and then for a while, and then gave it back. That's the worst type of regift.
Yes.
The worst regift is the one I stole from you.
Yeah.
So there's also allegation the statement that a video showing him trying to break into her back door. He was just trying to do that because she forgot her key. Which again, that's an argument you could make at trial, and you could see if a jury believes you. But that's the argument they're making in this motion to dismiss the charges. So we'll see what happens.
All right. We're going to go ahead and move into an interview. And when we come back, our question for the week.
Hey folks, it's Rob. I know you hear from me a lot on this podcast, and I hope you don't mind hearing from me one more time. I just want to mention Madison 365, as you know, is a non-profit community media outlet. What does that mean? That means we do what we do not to make a profit for a hedge fund or a corporate conglomerate or for shareholders. We do what we do because it's important to you and to our community. You are our shareholders. That means we also need your support. We need you to buy in. We need you to support what we do, to support this work so that we can continue to do it and to do it more and to do it better. Can you spare $5? Can you spare $5 a month? The fact that you're listening to this podcast is evidence that Madison 365 has been important to you. So, can you support us? If so, go to madison365.org/donate. We'll make it very easy for you. You can do a one-time donation. You can do a monthly donation right there. madison365.org/donate. Thanks a lot, folks. And joining us now is former Madison Common Council Alder and former council president, right? Didn't you do a year as president?
Yep.
Sheri Carter. Sheri, how you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for being here. And we're talking to you because you are running for District 10. Right?
Correct.
But you never actually you first ran and joined the Common Council in 2017. Is that right?
Well, I first ran in 2015 was my first term. 2015 to 2017.
Sorry, I was off by one. So 15, then 17, and then reelected in 19, reelected in 21.
Exactly.
And then we redid the districts.
Yep.
And you ended up in the same district with another incumbent.
Exactly.
Who beat you by 82 votes.
Yes.
It was a close one. If you'd ever think your vote doesn't matter, just look at some of these results, right?
There you go. Exactly.
Right. So you're taking another go at it here. Talk about that. So that was a long period of time you're on council, right?
8 years.
8 years.
4 terms.
What are some of the sort of the happier memories you have from the accomplishments during that period of time?
Well, I would say my accomplishments offhand was the $1.5 million I got for Penn Park. Mm-hmm. Not only that, advocating for the Goodman South Campus there. And I think that also my community engagement, because I was very active in all the neighborhoods that encompassed District 14 and had meetings with the neighborhoods on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. So I would say those were my accomplishments. Of course, you know that Central Hispano's new building I've supported, and also being constructed now would be the Center for Black Excellence, and the Black Hub has also, it's now open, but I supported that too. So those are the big things. And I would say it's not really a little thing, but one of the things I really like is the fact that I communicated with the constituents and really knew what they wanted on different items that hang him up on the agenda.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about on this podcast and just in Madison County generally that there's been this revitalization of that South Park Street corridor and that whole Penn Park the center. That's just been a really, really important thing over the last 10-ish years and probably the next 10.
Right. Absolutely.
And now, is that area? What part of that area is still in District 10 now?
None of it.
So that's all. Okay, so you did great work on District 14, and that's gone. It's somebody else's problem.
Someone else will claim it.
I think you can claim it. I think you definitely can claim it. I think that the bulk of that work, like you said, the Goodman South Campus too, like the bulk of that was the groundwork was laid in like 2018, 19, 20, 21. So and it's kind of like the buildings are going up now. Yeah. Right, but the groundwork was laid.
Exactly.
Exactly. There, right? I think it's fair to say. Now, doing all for 8 years, why do you want to keep doing it?
Oh, that is a good question, isn't it?
Right. I've been to those 3 a.m. city council meetings. Why do you want to do that to yourself?
Well, one of the things that I believe in is making sure that the community's voices are heard on the council floor. And one of the things that I look at when I look at District 10, which is several neighborhoods, of course, but is the representative bringing the voices of their constituent on the council floor? And I don't see that. Okay. And I strongly believe in it, and I want to represent them the way they deserve to be represented. And that is the same way I represented District 14.
So you feel like the incumbent now, who was the incumbent in District 10 before, right, isn't as connected?
Not as connected.
As you were, or as you would like to see.
And I think you need that because it's really easy to vote on something where you're just making that decision versus voting on it, knowing how it's going to affect your constituents. It's two different things.
Yeah. And knowing what your constituents want, which may be different than what you want.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. And then even sometimes, and the reason why I like having these meetings is because there are things on the agenda that the district doesn't want. The city wants, but the district doesn't want. And you have to be able to come together, explain it, and hopefully come to a compromise or at least come to an understanding. And that way, when you come back to the chamber, you're able to voice that. And that vote that you cast is not one in isolation of yourself, but the vote of the community that you represent.
I'm going to put you on the spot a second. Can you think of an example where you kind of had to go through that, how to thread that needle in your previous
definitely. When my first year as Alder, there was a development that was already in the works. So when I come in, they're already halfway down the football field, right? And I had talked to different neighbors, and they were, they didn't know anything about it. It might sound good, blah, blah, blah. But once I started talking about all the people involved in it, it turned out this was a development that they absolutely did not want and thought it was dead in the water. And yet it was behind the scenes, it was still alive. Okay. And so when I came back, when they found out, I was like, well, I told you about this. And they were like, well, we didn't know it was this development. Well, the long story short, it took a year, but we sat down and we talked about it, and it was halfway done on paper. And I said, we talked about it. And I said, I will shepherd this for you. I'm going to make sure that this does not impact you the way you feel it will. And I did. And now it's fine. I mean, there's people living in those apartments, and they're part of the community. But it's that point where you have to say, oh, rats. Right?
Yeah.
And then really keep bringing people there. I mean, I had meetings almost twice a month, really talking to different people, because some people come to this meeting, but they didn't come to the last meeting, and now they're there at the next meeting. So I just really worked with them, and we came to the conclusion was there wasn't even a compromise. The conclusion was this apartment was going to go up, right? This is how we're going to integrate this into the community, and that's what I worked on.
So you had to sort of, within the city process of that development, you had to kind of work, sort of advocating for your district to make sure that it happened in the way that
absolutely
was beneficial to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right.
And it took a long time, but we came to the right place.
Okay. As you're talking now, 10 years later, you're campaigning again, you're talking to people, you're knocking on doors. What are the pressing issues right now that you're hearing from those constituents?
Well, what I'm hearing, and it's really basic, because what I'm hearing is accessible transportation. The redesign did take away a lot of bus stops, right? And now you don't go a straight path to wherever you thought you were going.
Okay.
You're transferring and going in a different direction. So accessible transportation, transit is, like, I would say, probably the top 5. They're also looking at affordable housing. They're also looking at essential services. So as you know, one of the things that our mayor did with the referendum was saying, well, some of these things might not be. So essential services is on top of people's mind. And essential services is what every city is about, and we need to continue that. The other I mentioned before was affordable housing. And my take on affordable housing, it doesn't always have to be a 15-floor apartment. It can be a variety of things. So really, let's look at what other options do we have for affordable housing.
Is there any debate in your mind over what constitutes essential services?
Well, yeah, there is a debate, right? Yeah. This is Madison.
There's a debate over the sky color. But because there's some, I'm talking to some other folks, basic services, essential services, and we want to pare down and focus on the essentials. But what's essential to one person might not be essential to somebody else. So talk a bit about, in your mind, when you say essential services, that that can only be provided by the city that maybe aren't covered by the county or whatever?
Well, I think that we have to really look at public safety. We have to look at streets and recyclables. We have to look at those things as essential services. Okay. And then there's this bridge to essential services that you feel you should have. Right? And how do we, because Madison's a big place and we like to converse, how do we pare down the real essential services with other services that people feel that are essential? Right. And we might have a long list.
Right. And how do you, is it just a deliberative process to, and this is obviously, this is a budget conversation, right? You're talking about your priorities to spend money on. And that was, I mentioned the referendum, which is a budgetary thing. So is it just you just got to sit down and hash it out in terms of what's essential and what's not, and what's affordable and what's not?
That's true. And believe me, the council will do that. They will hash it out. But my thing is that for the city budget, we need to look at essential services, period. And once we get past that, then let's see what we have. Not every project is essential. For example, we're still doing flood mitigation. When was the flood? 2017? 18. Yeah, so, I mean, there are things that we really need to concentrate on and finish. We also have to look at our water supply. I know that from the east side, northeast side of town, they're concerned with PFAS, but all of our wells are old. So let's look at all of them as far as water quality. I think that's important too.
You talked a little bit about the sort of difference between what's good for the city versus what's good for your district and kind of balancing those things. Is that any more challenging when you're the council president, when you're kind of have to be thinking citywide?
Well, I do think it's challenging when you're council president, right? Because you really are at, when you're just an alder, you can say, hey, my district doesn't want that, blah, blah, blah. But when you're council president, you're balancing both very closely. And you still have to represent your constituents. So I would say that the best thing is that I find is to be true to myself. And what's good for the city is not always good for your constituents. But where is the middle ground for the city and your constituents? I know for at one time the I can't think of what it is, the wheel tax. Mayor Soglin wanted $17 wheel tax. And at the time I was like, oh my God, that's gonna harm people. So I was against it. I voted against it. And then Mayor Santia comes in with a $42 wheel tax. Well, in hindsight, that $17 looks pretty good, right?
Right.
So sometimes you make your decision and the administrative changes and you're like, man, can I go back and vote for that?
Could we just let's try 17 again? That's great. What in terms of affordable housing, is there I mean, that's obviously not an easy solution, but you mentioned that it's not just about big apartment buildings. What are the challenges? What are the difficulties in creating
there's a lot of challenges with affordable housing because, first of all, we need to have a clear definition of affordable housing. It means different things to different...
Right, what's affordable to who?
Yes. Right. One of the places where we're not addressing is all the people that are 30% and under. Wow. When you look at affordable housing right now is 30% and above. That is the Dane County minimum. Well, how about all those people that don't make that? So two things. One, you end up sharing an apartment, right? But really looking at those that are under 30%, because that's the group that is having the hardest time finding an apartment. Place to live, I should say. And then, so when we look at affordable housing, can we have some of these high rises, new developments, secure 10 units for affordable housing? Can we spread it that way? Can we build some duplexes? Can we rehab existing housing and make those affordable? I think that we have to go from a narrow view of affordable housing and broaden it, especially when you think about the population in Madison increasing. I still want to see a report telling me how many people are leaving Madison. I know it would be hard to do, but I would really like to see how many people leave Madison. But if you just look at the number of people projected to come into Madison, then we do need to open our eyes and broaden the scope for affordable housing.
You also mentioned public safety as a priority. We're in the transition to a new police chief at some point. What are your general thoughts on the relationship between the police department and the Common Council as it has been in the past, and the police budget and that kind of thing?
You know, I think that the majority of people in Madison believe in public safety. I mean, that's one of those essentials, I think. I think that when administrations come and go, that transition period is difficult. I think that with our police department, I think that we have to have common sense policing. We have to have cultural awareness. And just so you know, I just changed health insurance and looking for a doctor, and it will say cultural awareness. Never seen that before, right? And I'm sure my parents have never seen it.
Right.
You know, my mom's 97, so I'm sure when. But there it was, and so I think we have to have that. I think that the police need to be more visible. You're not just there to arrest. You're part of the community.
Okay.
And you need to be part of that community that you're in. Not where you live necessarily, because they can live out of town, but I'm talking about the community that you're assigned with in Madison. Yep.
There's been some, lately with a couple of issues that have been, you're not on council now, but I know you're paying attention, but the couple things have gotten a little bit dicey at meetings. A little contentious. There's been some decorum questions. What are your thoughts on any of that? And does that have to change?
As one of my neighbors said to me, the housewives of Madison has come to the Common Council. And I hate to say it, but I think my neighbor summed it up.
It does. There's a bit of drama now and again. Is that okay? Is that bad? We have to fix that? Is that whose fault is that?
It's disappointing.
Who's responsible for that?
I do believe that our mayor has to take more control of the floor. It is not what elected officials should do. And quite frankly, I was waiting for someone to take off the shoe and hurl it across the room because it has gotten that.
Yeah. For people who maybe don't pay attention to city council meetings, it's the president of the council doesn't preside over the meeting. It's the mayor that presides over the council meeting, is the chair of the meeting and makes the motions and recognizes speakers and enforces the rules and points of order and things. And then you feel like the current mayor maybe could tighten that up a little bit.
I think you're going to have to.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have decorum in the chamber.
Yeah. Sheri Carter, I really, really appreciate your time today. Anything else in the that you're hearing on the road and in the community that really needs to get discussed that we didn't ask about?
Well, I think that we really are trying to. Well, first of all, let me just talk about the change in our nation's administration.
I was thinking about asking about this, and I wasn't sure if I should because you might be joining a city council in a very different environment.
Right, exactly, and that's that's one of the points I wanted to make is that we're going into a precarious environment that's going to last 4 years.
At least.
So,
sorry.
That's going to last at least 4 years. So what does that mean for us? What does it mean for public health? What does it mean for even our budget? So I think that this is a time where we absolutely need people who are grounded, into their communities and their district, and able to bring those concerns, because there's going to be a lot of concerns coming forth, and we need to be able to relay those concerns on the council floor.
How can people follow you or find you or donate?
They can come to my website, www.shericarter.org, and I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter for now.
And it's SHERI Carter.org, right?
Yep.
All right. We'll put that link in the show notes so you could just click on that and find more about Sheri Carter. Again, the primary is February
18th.
And then the top two will go through, and the April 1st will be the general. And
April 1st, I can't believe it.
It's ominous. We'll be following that campaign as it goes along. Sheri Carter, again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And we're back, and we're going to end today with a question for the week, and it is in honor of all the NBA crazy trades.
Let's put a marker down here that 3 weeks ago the question was, what's your billboard?
Yeah.
And Nick, what was your billboard?
To trade Anthony Davis.
And that happened.
The Lakers front office was listening to our podcast and
Look
said,
at the
actually,
influence.
it's not a bad idea.
Look at the influence we have.
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
You can take credit for that.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah. But, so, this week, in honor of all that, who or what would you trade in life? It could be a family member. It could be, siblings. I don't care. Like your parents, friends, something silly, like your sports ball, Rob, like anybody in there. It could even be imaginary. Like if a character in a book that you would trade out for somebody else in a different book, whatever it is. Who in your life would you trade?
Omar?
I'm very passionate about this one. I would trade my uncle Irfan for absolutely anything. My uncle Irfan stole my identity twice, not once, but twice.
I mean, isn't that not a compliment to you that he was like, you know what?
Well, here's the thing.
His identity is the one that I want to be. Maybe he wanted to trade his life for your life. Maybe he wanted to be like you.
When I was a child, my uncle Irfan was deported, and then he came back, and he opened a business.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately, in Omaha, and he was a felon. You are not able to operate a business as a felon, specifically his type of business, a liquor store, as a felon. So he was like, you know what? I have a lot of nephews. This is just one of their identifications. So he stole mine.
When you were a child?
No.
Oh, okay.
He came back when I was 17. Oh. Also, the exact same day I sprained my ankle.
That's a really weird connection.
But one that he still holds on to.
Yes, of course. Because he came back that same day. He opened the business. He stole my identity. And he left me with a very large tax bill.
Oh.
I had recently re-enrolled into school by the time he did that. I dropped out of school twice. And I couldn't pay for classes anymore. So I had to go work intensely at Sprint and Dick's Sporting Goods to pay off a large tax bill, because not paying your taxes is fine. It's avoiding them that's illegal. As long as you plan to pay it eventually, you will not go to prison. My family said, please do not press charges. He only very recently came back into this country. You are going to split a family of 5 apart.
The family guilt came into it too. No.
I was like, I guess.
Right.
So I paid a $15,000 tax bill.
What?
And then a couple years later, he stole my identity again. This time for only $3,000. Time for only $3,000. Still left me with the tax bill. I had money to pay for that this time, which that's fine.
It's fine,
I guess.
Maybe the third time we turned them in.
Exactly.
Like maybe even the second time. In the first time. Here's the thing. Someone does you harm like that. It's okay to turn them in, y'all.
This time I got my revenge.
Oh.
Because he is a felon and he is operating liquor stores and he's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
I made an anonymous report to the the Omaha Liquor Control Authority, whatever their actual name is. And he got his liquor license revoked for 6 months, and he almost went bankrupt.
Only 6 months?
6 whole months?
Only 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
He transferred the business into his daughter's name.
I was just like, he transferred to somebody else's name. Yeah.
So, him. Also, at my grandmother's funeral, I refused to talk to him. It says, "Are you still being a brat about that?"
Oh,
like, why did you show up to my grandma's funeral? You've never even met her.
Why are you here?
And you called me a brat?
I'm like, that does not make me a brat. That makes me the wrong person in this conversation.
So I would trade my Uncle Irfan.
Yeah. I don't.
Wow, that was
therapy, y'all.
That was a journey.
that was a journey.
Thank you.
I'm very passionate about this topic.
It's okay to stand up for yourself, is what I'm going to tell you right now. Do not, and also maybe have someone watch your credit. Do you got somebody watching your credit? Lock down your credit. Knock down, and maybe suggest another social security number. Like, here are all the things I'm going to suggest.
Right.
Lock your credit.
You could also figure out how to make a liquor store not be able to sell liquor and cause them to almost go bankrupt.
Yeah, but you've already paid $18,000 for this person.
He lost significantly more money.
Oh, okay. You're
because
like,
he owned a few liquor stores and he almost went bankrupt.
He's like, I got my petty revenge. But I'm just saying for the future, so you don't have to do petty revenge.
Next time it's going to be violent.
Yeah.
But it hasn't happened since. I think he pieced together that I did that.
Yeah. And then when you would continue to cause, some revenge. Nick,
that. I don't have anything after that. So, you know what? I would just say that I would trade Donald J. Trump for President Obama.
Bring him back. Give him a third term.
Give him a third term. Why not? See what happens.
I think Trump is going to go for a third term as well.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen the way he thinks it's going to happen.
No, it's not, but he's going to try.
Sure. He's going to try everything. It's going to be an executive order, probably next week. Rob, what would you like to trade?
I was going to say I would trade my stupid stent-having heart for anybody else's that would allow me to eat steak again.
No, steak
but,
for you.
But that's actually fine. What folks, listeners will know, I'm a soccer nerd.
You are.
I am very dedicated to talking about soccer and watching soccer, and I've during the final group stage match of the Champions League, I literally had more screens than Paramount Plus would allow me to have on.
Yeah,
I found it was that's too many, but you gotta
stop.
Shut it down. FA Cup fourth round is coming out pretty soon. I'm very excited about that. But I am and I've played soccer since I was 10 years old, very, very poorly.
I mean, I've seen you play. And you've played fine for your age group.
For my age group.
Right?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Rob is aggressive. Like, he broke his leg and deserved it. I was like, you deserved that because you were playing dirty. Like,
I tried to foul a guy, and it didn't work out for me. I broke my leg.
So you know how, this is not you every day. You don't have, the short guy, thing that some short guys have. But you do when you play soccer. Yeah. You understand, I'm not the fastest. And I'm not the strongest, so I'll play the dirtiest. And that's how he plays. And he plays it well. I will not say.
Annoy you, but I did that.
Yeah, and then when you broke your leg, deserved it. Absolutely deserved.
I was beaten. I tried to get in front of a guy. I put my foot on top of the ball, and my foot rolled off the ball and twisted, and my leg went.
That's a former wrestler mentality.
Yeah, it 100%.
Is. 100%. That was my wrestling mentality too. But I would love to trade for the opportunity to be a good soccer player, to actually be a better, where I didn't have to where I could actually dribble.
I think you would still
the one time I had an opportunity to score a goal in high school, I went to kick the ball. I was 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper. I went to kick the ball and my foot hit the ground and I fell down. Biffed it completely. Yeah. That's how bad of a soccer player I am. I would love to trade for, and I would like to receive the ability to be a good soccer player. What I would trade is the most useless skill that I have. I'm not even sure you're aware of this, Stephanie. I'm very, very good.
A lot of useless skills you have.
In a very dumb way at jump rope.
Nice.
Wow.
All right.
So
Which
why
is
don't
ridiculous.
you? I'm sorry. If you got a skill, go make money off it. Why is there not competitive jump rope? Why aren't you looking for it? I'm sure there is.
Well,
go get it.
Hustle
In your
culture
age,
needs to die.
I'm not talking about like
no, age group.
I'm not talking about like double
group.
dutch. I'm not like
Weight group. Come on, let's just do it. Let's see what happens.
Not the thing. I'm talking
No,
about
no.
solo jump rope, where it's
I
just one
know.
person. I can go so fast,
I have seen you.
and I can do like the
You have
triple
showed it
thing,
off.
where
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
you do like,
And then he can like.
and I could flip it, and I could do like a one around and cross in one
You
jump.
showed me this.
Like I could still do all that,
Oh,
and
wow.
there's no use for that. And if somebody else
It's
out
actually
there,
great cardio. So like
It is.
you should.
I
I've
probably
told
shouldn't.
you that before. Like you could just jump rope for 15 minutes. You'd be good for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
like that
probably.
is actually really good cardio for you.
but I wouldn't have to be good at it to do that. You don't have to have a skill to like just get cardio out of jump roping. So if somebody else who's a good soccer player
Which
wants to go into competitive jump rope, I will trade skills with you. Somehow we'll do it like Freaky Friday style. I don't know how magic that would work, but that's the trade I would make if I could. What about you, Steph? What's your trade?
I would trade. So here's the thing. My personality has been the same since I was a little kid. This is who I am.
Yep.
When I had when I first gave birth to some children, a couple of them, Rob thought at one point and said out loud to me, I thought after having like this baby thing that you'd be a little nicer. I did not have to smack him for that. I just verbally reminded him of who I am and what I am and what you married.
Mm-hmm.
You knew the rules. You just thought like, maybe something would make me softer. That is not the case. However, I would have loved to have traded a little bit of my personality to my sister. I don't know that I needed a bit of hers because she's the nicest person in the world. And I could have been the monster that I've always wanted to be if not for her. Like, because she would like give me this look if I was up to something. And I would just stop and like, fine, I won't make it as bad as like I could have. Or if I got too verbally mean or when we were all fighting, arguing, whatever else, she would just put her head to the side and look at me. And then I'm like, all right, I'll be good. Like, right? So like if we could have just traded a little bit of our personalities for each other. But I don't know that I would want the nicer quality of her because she already made me nicer than I should have been. But like that's what I would have loved to trade. Like just trade a little bit of, or just had a different sister. No, because I like Jessica. She lets me like mess around with her and hide her glasses when I'm bored still. But just something between the two of us. If she could have a little bit more of my outgoing
assertiveness.
Maybe that. I'm a joy. I don't give a damn what you all think. I was going to say confidence. I'm a damn. I think it would be good, and I would be a little bit. But it would have been interesting to see if that would happen. Like what would happen? What kind of person I would have turned out to be? Maybe kinder, but then there's no fun in that. We don't like me kind. We like me messy and petty.
Exactly.
Ask your uncle. I didn't realize that was going to go. See, this is why I choose these questions. You never know where they're going to go.
I'm very passionate about the topic.
You were ready when I asked that question. You're like, I know exactly what, and you answered right away.
Because I have said this. During the 2020 presidential election, I said I will vote for anyone who promises to deport my uncle.
Oh my God.
I said that on stage, and people were laughing.
So let's maybe understand that Omar was releasing some trauma in this conversation.
Oh, no. I've already released that trauma.
I don't
This
know.
is just passion. This is
that
a
petty
cause.
That petty ain't gone away just yet. All right, we will be back next week, y'all.
365 Amplified is produced and edited by me, Rob Chappell, and is a production of 365 Media Foundation, a non-profit, local, independent media organization in Madison, Wisconsin. Wherever you're listening to this right now, hit the subscribe or follow button to get new episodes every Friday. And between episodes, get your latest news at madison365.org and follow us on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Threads. Wherever you get your news, we'll be there.